I wanted to work with the people who were doing it for a living, the pros, the people who are eking out a living playing in that local orchestra, because I figured those people are demonstrating it, they're doing it. And so that will rub off on me, being around that greatness, modeling that greatness is so important. So I was lucky to work from the very beginning with, performers who played and made their living from playing. And then, I had my models growing up too. I mean, I still love Benny Goodman. My dad had Benny Goodman records around the house, and that kind of fueled my early love of music and kind of turned me toward the clarinet, I think. And then later on, years later, I worked, in that town, I worked with students of the principal clarinet of the Cleveland Orchestra, Robert Marcellus. And if you're ever looking for something great to listen to, find the Mozart Clarinet Concerto. It's the greatest solo piece ever written for the clarinet. The slow movements used in many movies out of Africa, etc. But there's a recording of it with Robert Marcellus and the Cleveland Orchestra, George Sell. It's still 30, 40 years on, one of the top recordings of it. So through working with Robert Marcellus's students, I got in that system, that lineage, if you will, that approach to playing the clarinet. What do you sound like? What kind of equipment do you use? How do you approach playing? What's your style of playing? How do you phrase music? Phrasing in music is like how we speak, but it's in musical terms, like how you say a sentence is how you phrase a line of music. So I've worked with his students, and then I kept ascending the ladder, working with more of Mr. Marcellus' students until I got the pleasure to meet him right before he passed in the early 90s, and I worked with him in Chicago. And it was really like meeting God for me. It was like you get yourself into this lineage, this system, and then you finally get good enough or have enough experience, and it becomes part of you, and you get to actually work with that person and be in the room with them and swap stories and stuff. And so I've continued. He's gone now, but all of his students, we pass on proudly that lineage to our students. So I still hear myself saying phrases he would say, like, when you tongue notes, tongue on the wind, or, a lot of his phrases will come popping out of my mouth, without me thinking about it. So, and it's the same thing with Scott. I think Scott does that extremely well. And the students are very loyal to him as well. And, but he's just modeling his teachers as well too, like Erickson and other people that he worked with, that whole idea. And Erickson, my voice will go with you. That's the same thing as with Mr. Marcellus with the clarinet. So yeah, that's a huge thing, is finding a teacher that you resonate with who has. And sometimes the resonating might be, okay, well, I don't know if I totally agree, but I think there's something there that I can learn if I just relax and, let some of my mental processing go.
Being willing to have the experience first before you judge anything is really...
Behavioral flexibility, mm-hmm. Yes. That's one big thing I've learned from Scott. Yeah. And it helps me in everything.
So from the point of view of music, you were on this mission in a passionate enough way that you felt safe enough in your own talents to be able to find masters to model and be willing to put things aside, whatever your opinion was aside, and willing to agree to simply learn from them and be in the same, do what they were doing.
Mm-hmm. It's a lot easier, I find, for me to do that modeling in music. And I think my life's goal, I think music popped up in my life the way it did for me to have a avenue in my life to do that modeling and to work with people in that way. And now my mission has been to kind of bring that fluidity and that ability into the other parts of my life. I'm a lot better than I was. I still have a ways to go. But it's weird, isn't it? It's like anyone can look at their master field, the field that they just kind of naturally have flow and experience in. And you go, wow, I just naturally accept criticism over here in music. You have to. If someone comes to you and says, you're doing this wrong, or a conductor is staring you and you've got 80 colleagues around you, you can't say, well, I just know better than you, and that's not what Mozart wanted, people are going to think you're a complete idiot and you'll lose your job. You have to work and say, well, maybe this conductor has some insight, maybe something that I've not thought of, and even if I disagree with even if I think the conductor is totally wrong, if I'm playing in a large group like that, I have to put my will into the greater good of the group. I have to make the whole group sound good. It's not about me sounding great, So that's so music teaches so many life lessons. That's why I think it's important. I think everyone should try to play an instrument, not try. I think they should play an instrument to whatever level. And it's not about making yourself professional quality. I think if more people had a musical outlet like they used to, every home used to have a piano in the Victorian era, I think if people have an experience of making sound, even if it's with the voice or playing a drum or whatever, the world would be a lot more peaceful place. And I think people would be happier and they would achieve more in life if they had that musical, tangible experience of making music.
And we could even generalize that and say that experience of learning in that way, which you had through music, if people make it part of their mission to find some way to have an experience like that in their life, it doesn't really matter where it is, but to find somebody who's excellent and masterful at something that you want to become excellent and masterful at, and being willing to simply agree to emulate what they're doing for long enough that you learn how to do it better and you start to see, oh, now I get why they're doing it that way. Because sometimes it's not clear.
Absolutely.
That would be a really valuable exercise and experience for people, because once you get it, like you have enough experience with this to see how much you used to sabotage yourself when you weren't doing it elsewhere.
Right. Well, it's also nice too when you have a mentor or a master teacher or teachers that you work with. They have been where you've been, and they've guided obviously many other people who are in the same exact spot you're in now, and they can. Being a teacher myself too, the thing I love is being able to go to a young student, and sometimes the young students think, oh, I know it all. What's this guy going to teach me? I know how to do this. I find that it's nice to be able to say, well, hey, think about this aspect, because I had to go the long way. I had to be the pioneer, and suffer and maybe create a bad habit, or, I made this harder on myself to learn this concept. But here is what I've learned. It's a lot easier if you do it this way over here than this reinventing the wheel method over here, which wastes a lot of time. Again, the student has to be willing to, you have to have rapport with the student.